So, welcome to the October 4th edition of the SIG CLI biweekly meeting. I'm Sean Sullivan, I'm your host. It looks like we're going to have a short meeting today, but there are a couple of important announcements, and I'll get directly into those. The first is that tomorrow at the end of the day is the KEP freeze, the KEP deadline. And so if you have any KEPs that need to be completed, you have a very short time frame to do that, including one of the KEPs that I'm working on. And shortly, actually pretty shortly after that, the end of the day on October 31st, at the end of the month, in about 3.5 weeks, I believe, or maybe close to 4 weeks, is when we have the code freeze for the 129 release, which is obviously going to be pretty important. The PRR, I see there's a question in the chat. Does this deadline include the PRR review? So the PRR reviews are more informal, and they were actually due last week. So if there is a KEP, I think you should probably start talking to somebody like John Belmark or someone else in the PRR review team. There were several shadows last time, so it's an enhanced team now. Okay, so there's another question about the what is a code freeze? So the deadlines that I've just mentioned are deadlines for our next Kubernetes release. So we release every 4 months, and we're on the 29th release after we've gotten to V1 many years ago. And so the dates that I'm describing are for our next release, which is 1.29. And generally what we go through is we open up the release, which describes the dates, which describes the release team, and then usually the first deadline is for PRR, which is production readiness review, which for when we have features or fairly large items that we're submitting into the code base, we need a design document. And those are what are called KEPs, Kubernetes enhancement proposals. And the PRR, the production readiness review, is a small part of that design, which describes how it affects how well Kubernetes will run in production. And so the next deadline is, in fact, tomorrow is the design doc, and then about a month after that is usually when we freeze the code. And the code freeze is allows us to fix bugs on what have been installed and to make sure that what we're going to release, usually about a month after the code freeze, is solid. So we don't want to continue making changes all the way up until the release. Otherwise, the release would be unreliable. And so we freeze the code, and the only code that gets allowed in after the code freeze is for bug fixes and other important reliability changes. So did that help explain?
Yeah, that's clear now.
Okay. Okay, great.
Go ahead. I'll add a little bit more color. I'm trying to shadow the PRRs this time around. In general, the PR, the way you think about every freeze, whether that will be a code freeze, enhancement freeze, or test freeze, because we have 3 freezes per each release cycle. It means by that then the particular code, whether that's an enhancement, a change in the code, or a test, has to be merged by that particular date. The dates are given in both Pacific and UTC times, if I remember correctly. But I think like end of day, Thursday, and then Wednesday is the easiest one to remember. For those that are looking where those dates are coming from, I'll just link this document from the release team so that you can easily check those dates. Also, there is usually an announcement in the Kate's dev, or yeah, that's probably the best place to find that information. So yes, the PRRs have to be reviewed by tomorrow end of day as well.
Cool. So those are the dates that that we've just mentioned are the most important deadlines. And I didn't actually. I'll put in later the PRR deadline of end of day tomorrow as well. And so I'll move on to the next announcement if there's not any more questions on our release deadlines. That was a good question. Thank you. Okay, so the steering committee election has completed, and I've put in our notes the 4 newest elected members, and one of them is our tech lead Maciej. Congratulations, Maciej. And so the newly elected members will serve for at least, is it 2 years, Maciej? Before the next election?
Correct. My term will be the next 2 years.
Okay, and they are going to join the 3 continuing steering committee members, which I also put in the notes. And so I'll move on to the next item, which is our introductions. And so for those of you who have never been here before or who haven't been here for a while, we set aside some time in order to introduce yourself to your SIG CLI colleagues. And so, of course, this is voluntary, but if you'd like to introduce yourself to your colleagues in the SIG, this is your opportunity to do that. Is there anyone who would like to introduce themselves?
Hi, should I go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Afan, and I'm a computer science student, and I'm also a mentee for CNCF mentorship program for the Karmada. And I'm interested in SIG CLI, and I'm willing to contribute.
Welcome. Good to meet you.
Hi everyone. Myself Mahesh Shetty, and I'm currently working at Red Hat and IBM for one of the container storage team. So this is my first time being an open source contributor, and I've been like following this community for quite some time. So I'm currently working on one of the issue. Yeah, I'm looking forward to contribute and yeah, grow here. Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. Pleasure to meet you. Is there anyone else who would like to introduce themselves? Okay, so we'll move on to the next section, which is updates on KEPs, our Kubernetes enhancement proposals. I put in the one that I'm working on. If anybody else wants to add to that, please do. So there's been an outstanding effort to move some of our streaming commands, which are kubectl exec, copy, and attach, as well as kubectl port forward. They upgrade a connection to a streaming protocol, which is right now it's Speedy, but Speedy's been deprecated for 8 years. And so in order to to upgrade to a more modern bidirectional streaming protocol, which is more usable for gateways. We're changing that protocol to WebSockets. And so that's what this KEP is. And so I put in a couple of the links to the items for this KEP, including the KEP itself, and then a couple of the PRs that we've worked on. One of which is merged, and the second of which is pretty mature and probably will be merged relatively soon. And then I also put in the PR for upgrading the KEP to add some description of how we're going to work with port forward. So the kubectl exec, copy, and attach use one particular protocol. They're basically running a process on a container from our command line, and then port forward does something completely different, which is basically sending requests through a local port, which is connected to another port on the container. That's the port forward. So that's what this KEP is describing, and what we're working on, including by deadlines for tomorrow. Does anybody have, number one, any questions about this KEP, or is there anybody else who wants to? I know that we have a couple other KEPs outstanding. Arda, did you want to mention anything about any of the KEPs? Are any of our KEPs, are they trying to hit any of the deadlines for tomorrow or for the end of the month?
Yes, I now after our conversation, I pinged Logical Han about PRR reviews. I have two KEPs. First one is interactive flag for delete command, and the other one is plugin subcommand resolution for create command. And I am opening PRs to promote these two PRs to beta. Actually, they were in alpha, and we are just trying to promote them to beta.
All right.
I can set them.
Yeah, and we're only missing the PRR reviews on both, if I remember correctly, because I was looking and tagging both of them earlier this week. I also pinged shadows for those. Yeah, Han is one of the shadows. I remember he was asking some questions. I'm not sure if the other one had. But at the end of the day, if I remember correctly, one is assigned to John. That's the plugin resolution for non-shadowing subcommands. I linked there's a board with the PRR, so you can check who is the person assigned. And I see the other one is also assigned to John.
But Logical Han reviewed these two PRs, but that doesn't mean that he is the just shadow. Okay.
Yes, he is only a shadow. You still need an approval from a very short list. Currently, the PRR approver team consists of John, Wojtek, and David. Only those three and approve the PRRs. But we have a shadow of I can't remember. There's 5 or 6 of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. But yeah, and we are helping with the initial reviews for those PRRs. But it is always the final approval has to come from the main approvers.
Okay, the next section is the open discussion, which we don't have anything currently. So we're going to, well, first I'll ask if there is anything that should be added to our open discussion. If not, we're going to close. There's a hand. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, I can give a heads up for a cap we are targeting for the next release, hopefully. It's called declarative node maintenance, and like there are still ongoing discussions what's the actual the scope and implementation of the API will or of the cap will be, but it we are trying to improve the node maintenance, so this could also affect the SIG CLI with the kubectl drain command. And I can give a link to that as well.
That'd be great if you could to add that to the notes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so if there is nothing else, we'll close the meeting and give everyone 40 minutes back. Okay. Thank you for joining, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.